Good morning, everybody. It's the start of another wonderful week here at St Mary's. Although actually, I've kind of lied to you a little bit there because actually I'm filming this on Sunday because I've got a really long meeting on Monday and I did want Assembly to be ready for you because I know lots of you do tend to start your week with it. So I'm filming from my house. It's like I've gone back into lockdown just for this one weekend so that you've got it ready for this last week. Now, you might already be thinking in your head and talking, you might have already done some muttering amongst the person next to you as to what my assembly might be about from what you can see here on your screen. And I'd like you to take a moment to have a think. Do you know who this painting is of? Maybe the poster in the background that says Justice for All has helped to anchor your thinking a bit. But I wonder, do you know who this is a painting of? Talk with your class for a moment about it. Now, you may know who that person is. Here is another picture of the same person. And this is George Floyd. Now, that name, again, might be triggering things in your head because it is a name that we've heard a lot of in the past year. Now, George Floyd was a 46-year-old man who was arrested and restrained by the police in America on the 25th of May, 2020. Now, during the time when he was restrained, that means that he was held by police. He wasn't just handcuffed, he was physically held down by them. He told the police officers during his arrest 16 times within a 5-minute time period that he couldn't breathe. But the officer who was restraining him by putting his knee on George's neck didn't move. Now, that actually resulted in George Floyd being killed. Now, there were 4 police officers who were involved in restraining him, arresting him, and undoubtedly killing him. All 4 of those police officers were fired. Now, 3 of those police officers are still awaiting their trial in the court for their involvement in his death. And one of them has actually already been found guilty of murder. Because what happened to George Floyd, he wasn't just killed. The reality is he was murdered by that policeman. And the others who were equally involved had a big part to play in that as well. And what we're going to be thinking about today is how we are a year on from what happened with George Floyd. And actually we need to think about what we have learned in that year, how globally things are being talked about more than they were a year ago, and also things that we can do within school to make sure that things like this don't happen again. Now, at the smallest level, you're probably thinking, what on earth? That would never happen in school. That action would never happen in school. But what was underlined behind that action was deep racism. And that is something that we need to talk about and work on developing so that we don't have that in school and we don't have it anywhere in our society going forward. So we're going to watch a little video first to give us, oh, where's it gone? Some more behind. Here we go.
The death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. On the 25th of May 2020, a black man called George Floyd was killed by a white police officer during an arrest in Minneapolis in America. His death was captured on video and seen by many people. The pictures show the police officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes.
He was defenseless. He was handcuffed. He couldn't do anything. And he was asking for him to just get off of him.
George Floyd wasn't the first black person to be killed by police in America. It had happened many times before, and it's happened since. So for many people, when George Floyd died, enough was enough. It shone a light on how badly black people are treated by others in our society, not just in America, but in countries all over the world, including the UK. Within days, thousands of people in over 60 countries had taken to the streets to express their anger at the unfair treatment of black people by the police, and to protest against the racism in America and in their own countries.
Black Lives Matter!
All part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
There have been huge marches. And in some cities, statues have been toppled by anti-racist protesters. But what is the Black Lives Matter movement? And why are people pulling down statues?
Black Lives Matter!
To understand, let's start with a simple question. What is racism?
Racism is all about when you're being mean about someone's skin color, their language, or about their religion. We all need to be treated equally. If someone's treated badly and the other person gets treated really nicely, it isn't fair.
That's right. Racism is when people treat other people unfairly and assume bad things about them that aren't true, just because of the color of their skin. All people of color can experience racism in their lives. But in many countries, like America and the UK, black people are more likely to experience racial inequality than any other group. The Black Lives Matter movement has been protesting the unfair treatment of black people, including by the police and other authorities, since 2013, long before the death of George Floyd. They want to show people that black people matter just as much as everybody else, and to end racism for good. By raising awareness about the issues faced by black people through protests, and encouraging everybody to take action against racism, not just by not being racist, but by being actively anti-racist.
I think that everyone coming together and, fighting for justice is such a beautiful thing to see. People from all walks of life.
I'm just happy that something is finally being done about it, and we're all trying to push this movement further.
We need to change the system. People of colour deserve the same rights that white people do, and that's what we're fighting for.
So there's lots of things we've just seen in that video. There was lots of discussion about the Black Lives Matter movement, and the reality that actually it didn't start because of the death of George Floyd. Black Lives Matter as an organisation has been around since 2013, really working to make a difference. And what I'd like you to do is I want you to have a look at some of these images that are here. Some of these images, all of these images have come out as part of what's been happening since the murder of George Floyd. And since the Black Lives Matter movement has really had a real momentum and a push on ending racism so that the lives of Black people can be equitable to the lives of anybody else. I want you to have a look at these photos, and I want you to pause for a moment and talk with each other about which of these images stands out to you. Which one of them really speaks to you as a person? Which one is pulling on your feelings and emotions right now? And I want you to think about why that is happening to you. So pause and have a talk together. So you will have seen here, there's the image at the bottom of the footballers who are still taking the knee at the beginning of some of their football matches in honour of ending racism within sport, because that has come out as a huge issue over the years. And they are actively making a stand to say, we want to end this. Maybe it's the picture of the white policeman embracing this Black lady here as part of the demonstration to show how actually we are all human. We can all be friends and have the same values and goals and beliefs. We don't want to have a disparity. Maybe it's the picture there of the children who are all coming together to share in that feeling that Black lives matter. Maybe it's that lady at the bottom whose yours is using George Floyd's own words of "I can't breathe" on her mask. Which one of those pictures I wonder stood out the most to you? Now, the reality is we have to bring all of this back to our own school. How can we take what we have learnt from what happened to George Floyd, but what's happened to many, many other people as well as him? How can we bring this into our school? Now, the reality is, St. Mary's, we are lucky. We are so lucky that we are a diverse school. We have parents, pupils, staff from all different backgrounds, all different cultures. We are diverse, all different religions. But not only are we lucky to have that, we are also proud to be a diverse school, because not every school is like St. Mary's. There are some schools where there are 99% of the children who are all of a Muslim background. There are some schools that are 100% white British. There is not one person that is not white British in that school or the community. We are proud, and we should be proud, that we are a diverse school of different races, religions, everything. That is something we should be proud of. But what I want you to think about now are these two questions. Have you ever seen or experienced any prejudice or discrimination in your life? And has there ever been an instance where you have, without even thinking about it, where you have subconsciously judged someone because of the way that they looked before you got to know them? Now, these two questions aren't necessarily about being in school, because you may have never, and I hope that you would have never seen any or felt any prejudice within school, but you may have had it in another situation. Maybe someone in your family has had something happen to them that you know about, and so has affected you. But think about the second question in particular. Has there ever been a situation or a time where you have judged somebody just because of the way they look before you've got to know them? Now, obviously, the George Floyd example is extreme. Those police officers judged George Floyd because he was a big, tall black man. And so they thought he was going to be aggressive when he wasn't. They thought he was going to resist their arrest, which he didn't do. But they judged him before they actually got to know him. And that resulted in his death. That is an extreme example. But actually, have you ever done that, where you've judged somebody just because of the way they look? Talk about it with each other. So at the end of the day, what my assembly is about today is not just about George Floyd and what's happened since that, but my assembly really has the underlying focus, which is the same as the Black Lives Matter focus. And it's the same as what we've learned from what happened to George Floyd, is that what we need to do collectively as a society is to work harder to stop racism. Now, that's all well and good. I know me saying something like stop racism, we can stop racism, but actually, how do we do that? What can we do to stop racism? What can I do to stop racism? What can you do, whether you are 5, whether you are 11? What can you do if you are 75 or if you're 18? What can we do to stop racism? At the very first point of it, if you hear or you see something that is racist, call it out. I have said it repeatedly in so many assemblies now, I can't even remember. Be an upstander. If you hear or see something that is racist, say it's racist, call it out. Tell that person that what they said was not kind. Tell an adult. Stand up for your friends. Be an upstander. That is the only way we're going to stop racism, is if other people stop allowing it to happen. You can, I can, everyone can read books that help us understand racism a bit more. Here are just 3. Anti-Racist Baby, great children's book. We Are All Welcome. Look at all the different types of people on the front of that book. So those are kind of books for younger children. that older children can get lots out of as well. And if you're in year 5 and 6, Ghost Boys is in your classroom. I read it with the Reading Gladiators last year, but there are lots of books around there that are out there now that can really help you to understand more about racism. Because if you are a white person, then you need to understand it. So reading more, talking to other people, hearing other people's stories can help you to understand racism. Talk about racism, whether it's in class, like you're doing now in this assembly, whether it's at home, whether it's with your friends. Talk about it. Because the more that we talk about it, again, the more we educate and the more we learn about it. We keep not talking about it, things won't change. We need to listen and learn from each other. And that's what I said you can do when you read a book. You're taking in another person's story. Learn from each other. That's how we grow as people. And most of all, we have to celebrate difference. Difference is amazing. If we were all absolutely the same, how life would be so boring. So we should celebrate people's differences by finding out more, by linking their experiences to our own lives. But we should celebrate the power and the richness that we have from being different. And again, if we do that, that will help to stop racism. So I want you to look at this list right now and choose something that you are going to do today. Choose something that you're going to do this week. Choose something that you're going to do this month. What are you going to do? Now, I want us to think for a moment and have a time to reflect. So have a moment to yourself. We're going to have our prayer in a minute, but before we get there, we're going to have some time to reflect. So every person on our planet is unique. We have different coloured skin, different colour hair, different eyes. Everything about us is different. We all speak different languages. Our cultures are all different. But nobody should be treated badly or unfairly because of those differences. Every single person on this planet has the right to be treated equally. And we all can play a part in making that happen. If we do this, this will bring an end to racism for good. I want you to put your hands together. The prayer today hasn't got a candle for reflection. But what I have got here are just a few images out of the millions of people who are trying to make a difference. Whether they are people that will go down in history forever, like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X here, or whether they are people who have a platform, like Amanda Gorman there. You might not know who Amanda Gorman is, but I'm going to leave that for you to find out. You've got the Obamas there, Barack and Michelle. But there you can see just people, everyday people like you and me, who are part of that Black Lives Matter movement, who went on a protest. But actually, if you didn't go into a protest, doesn't mean you don't value this. You can value it in how you behave. You can value it in how you treat others. So the millions of people around the world who I want you to focus on right now, because I implore each and every one of you to be part of making a change. Dear God, thank you for the courage of all those who stand up to racism and fight for our right to be treated equally. Help us to treat everyone with the same respect, regardless of the colour of their skin. Amen. Now, each of these people here you can see before you have all got one thing in common, and that is courage. Standing up to racism, fighting to be part of the difference takes courage. And I want each and every one of you to show some courage to be part of the change going forward. Now we're going to have our hymn for today, which is a thoughtful one. And I want you to think about why maybe I've chosen this as today's song.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. His grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Where lived in them 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We've no less days to sing of praise than when we first begun.
So that song, Amazing Grace, it starts by saying, once I was blind and now I see. The whole world, in all different ways, is slowly not just realizing, but is trying to ensure that the lives of Black people are equal to the lives of white people. But in order for that to happen successfully, we have to end racism. And for us to do that successfully, we have to understand that racism stops with me. It stops with me, it stops with you, it stops with each and every one of you. It will not end if we let it carry on. So think of all those things that each and every one of us can do every single day to stop this. That's what I want you to do. George Floyd showed the world the injustice that can happen from treating people unfairly. He lost his life because of it. And we don't want to get to that point ever again. The reality is there have been people after George Floyd who have lost their life in exactly the same way. But it's what we say on the playground. It's the jokes we make to our friends. All of those things. We don't want racism in our school. And if I will admit, the other day I got year 4, 5 and 6 together and I talked about lots of things with them, including this. And one of the girls said, we actually don't have racism really at all at St. Mary's. Now, that's not 100% true, because there are things that are said to people that people might take as a joke, or maybe they don't see it as racism. But what I did feel good about was that they collectively, that group of children, thought, St. Mary, we don't have racism at St. Mary's. And that filled me with joy that they think that. But I also know maybe it's because they themselves haven't been on the end of it. Or maybe they themselves have kind of not noticed when things have happened. I really want to be 100% sure in knowing that St. Mary's is actively anti-racist. And I truly believe that we are a really great school for valuing difference and celebrating others. But I also know that I have to show that Christian core value of trust for each and every one of you. But you are going to take this to heart, and you are going to really and truly believe that racism stops with you, because it does. I want you to have a wonderful week. Look after each other, look after your friends, look after yourself, work hard, because at the end of this week, you're going to be rewarded with a week off. So enjoy yourselves, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.